multiple arrests, as you were mentioning, they end up incarcerating people because they are unhoused, because they don't have the financial ability to be able to have homes. But in addition to that, what they end up doing is it becomes a labor source, right? Because those that are then incarcerated are then can be used as cheap labor, as labor sources for some of the private industries that are around. So it seems like this court, the Supreme Court itself, has this thing about poor people, about people that can't afford things, that they're almost enabling that labor source to remain in place. Your thoughts?
I agree with you 1,000%. And if you think about some of the responses, even that you see to women's rights, there is this criminalization factor that enters into that discussion as well. Mm-hmm. Yet there is this idea that we should legalize guns and prohibit any kind of regulation on guns or regulation on those in power, those that create private prisons and benefit from them. One of the reasons why this has so much momentum is there's a group of hedge fund operators, really incredibly rich people called the Cicero Institute, and they are actually pushing legislation to criminalize across the country through model legislation. And they are incredibly rich people, and so you have to ask yourself, why are they doing this?
Right.
What is the underlying reason? And I think you hit on it. It's more prison labor. It's the because they also talk about on their website the fact that private prisons are not a bad thing and we shouldn't be denouncing them. So they're all.
Can I weigh in on the trend line issue?
Yes, please.
So this is really important. Thank you for bringing it up, Daryl. Wherever we look at housing costs on the rise, housing availability on the decline or being very, very low, and income or wages being stagnated, it is a recipe for unsheltered homelessness. It is a one-to-one relationship, positive relationship. Grants Pass is one of those places that's exactly like that, spiking, unprecedented levels of housing cost increases, absolutely no available housing, and wages that have stagnated over the last 50 years. So if we look at the whole big picture here, there's some things that we know, and yet we're ignoring. And one of the most important things we can do is to educate ourselves about this so that we can elect leaders who are going to make the right decisions. Because you were right, Barbara, when you said that a lot of the progressives, so-called progressives, really got us into this mess. First, punishment makes it worse. This is a fact.
I'm glad you said so-called, too, when you talked about
right.
Punishment makes it worse. Punishment, if you give somebody a criminal sentence, makes it harder for them to work. Never mind the fact that about 1/3 to 1/2 of homeless people are actually employed. Never mind the fact that the elderly is the most growing population. It makes it worse. We're also the most incarcerated country in world history, and we know how much that costs. It's the most expensive response. Right. Yet we're still committed to it because it either banishes and invisibilizes people that folks don't want in their community, or it perpetuates the prison industrial complex. Second, progressives really did help get us into this mess. You point at Gavin Newsom, I agree. Mayor London Breed, Mayor Kate Gallego in Phoenix, a lot of Democrats on the left. They asked the Supreme Court to do this. Out of the gate, they filed 25 petitions asking the Supreme Court to do it. Some of them changed their mind when they saw the overwhelming response that this community mustered and tried to play a middle ground role later on. But make no mistake, the court saw it and they used them. They tokenized all of those talking points in the majority opinion, and it's full of lies about how this principle that you can't punish people for existing in public when they have nowhere else to go ties their hands and prevents them from providing services. Absolutely a lie. Because the most important point that Donald is raising is that housing solves homelessness. We know this to be true. Decades of data, government agency research, academic institutes, but you can just look for yourself. The first time that we had to contend with modern homelessness was the Great Depression. That was the last time we saw such a huge disparity between Americans' ability to afford rent and the cost of housing. And what did we do? We invested in safe, affordable housing, and we beat homelessness at that point in time. Why are we in this situation now? because in the 1970s, both political parties began dismantling federal services and at the local level with racist myths about welfare queens and things like that. We need to dispel these myths. We need to dispel this misinformation about people being service resistant, and we need to dispel this notion that this is about behavior, that this is a choice people are engaging in. We need to demand our local elected leaders protect access to decent, affordable housing, and we need to demand that our federal leaders invest in protecting affordable housing again.
Thank you. And Maggie, I just want to come back to you because you became homeless because your rent tripled.
Yes, that's correct.
And so what do you want to say as your final comments to our national audience about?
I want to say yes to ending the prison industrial complex, yes to informing disenfranchised people that they are allowed to vote, and all they have to have is a cross street. So they name 2 streets, they go get their ID, and they should vote. The other is about housing inventory. Increase it. Community land trusts, community associations with the homeless. Landlords are allowed to keep units empty. These landlords that have contracts with the government for 2 to 3 years. If somebody calls and complains, they get 2 to 3 years to rectify the situation, and they don't pay a fine.
So thank you so much. Those are some really excellent, concrete suggestions. Daryl, we've been blessed. What an amazing panel. This is advocacy, people. If you're sitting around and you hadn't been thinking about this issue, make this a priority now. Think about it. I've been reading insane stuff on social media. People saying, well, at least folks now will go to jail and they'll get a bath and have a cot to sleep in. Have these people been in jail? Have they seen what a jail is? Do they understand what it's like to have a criminal record that Will just really laid out to us about how it bans you from being able to get a job in the future? I mean, do people really understand the nonsense that they're saying? We want you all listening throughout the country to become advocates for getting rid of and eradicating homelessness by providing housing, by providing services.
Sign people up to vote housing first.
Yes. Thank you. So as we close, Daryl, I turn it over to you to take us home, to bring everybody, to get everybody's info, etc.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Barbara, and thank everybody for listening. Thank our guests that have been with us today. Donald Whitehead, I'll Rise and Vote, the concert series that we're working on together. We're talking about this issue. We're talking about those that are underhoused, those that are unhoused, those that are under siege for voting rights, and we're saying rise up and vote. Donald Whitehead, if people want to get in touch with you, how do they reach you?
People can just, you can email me directly, Whitehead@nationalhomeless.org, or go to our website, www.nationalhomeless.org. Happy to respond to anyone.
Thank you so much, Donald. You're amazing.
Thank you.
And Will Knight, people are listening. They're hearing, I hear this guy talking. He's on point. I need more information. How do people reach you, Will?
Thank you. I am on Twitter. I guess it's called X now, Will Knight AZ. And you can get a hold of us at the National Homelessness Law Center at homelesslaw.org, or you can email our office at info@homelesslaw.org.
And yes, go ahead.
Go ahead, Barbara. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, Maggie, do you want people to contact us to get your contact, or do you have a contact that you want to share?
I will share it right now. It is TEGFMS @gmail.com.
Say it once more for everyone to hear.
PEGS as in Frank, M as in Mary, S as in Sam, @gmail.com.
Thank you so much, Daryl. To this evening, we have a meeting at 4 o'clock of the Mighty Planning Committee and the 70-plus hosts for July 17th for our National Day of Action to say to this nation, pass the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act, pass the Freedom to Vote Act, pass the very critical Native American Voting Rights Act, and give D.C. its statehood. We are on the march. We are locked hand in glove, tightly, all fingers together, all steps together, all rolling together. We are here to make sure that we have a government, a ruler of, those who are in power, leaders who are capable of addressing this issue of homelessness in the correct way. Stop Band-Aiding. Stop, just putting all your money in criminalization. Stop this. It's time for real humane practices. Right, Daryl?
Absolutely, Barbara. We encourage everyone to go to tjcoalition.org, tjcoalition.org. You can find out more information with regards to the July 17th Day of Action. It's a national day of action. You'll be able to find a day of action that's in your community, in your neighborhood. And if there's not one there, you can have one begun. You can start one. We will promote you as much as we can. Folks, we've had some wonderful guests that were on today, Will Knight, as well as Donald Whitehead. We encourage you to go to Grave and Justice and listen to the podcast that Lisa Graves has put in place that's there. Maggie G., we appreciate you. We pray for you. We pray your safety. We pray your advance.
Yes,
we pray you continue pushing for those that are unhoused and the rights of all of those that make up our society. For all of our listeners, wherever you are, we encourage you to go to vote.org, number one, and check on your voting status. Be certain that you're registered to vote. You haven't been purged. They haven't moved your polling place, because the Supreme Court is throwing down the gauntlet. They've already laid it out. They're challenging you to get to the polls, to get people in office. If you don't like what they've done, then you need to vote and get senators as well as members of Congress that are in place that can review the Supreme Court, that can make the changes on the court, that can expand the court, that can lessen the impact of what the court has done. If you don't like it, don't stand on the side of the street and watch things happen, watch things go by, watch life as it moves. Get in the street and make the change you're looking for. We encourage you. We implore you. We ask you. Get registered. Go vote. Take people with you. Be the change. Don't just look in the mirror. Be the change of the man in the mirror. Get in there and make it happen, folks. We can tell you, we can ask you, we can show you. TJC will be there with you every step of the way as we protest, as we push forward for voting rights for every eligible American. We encourage you. Exercise that right to vote, people. Exercise that right to vote. Until next Tuesday, noon, Eastern Standard Time, get off the sidewalks, get into the streets. Peace to everybody.
Peace.
The preceding program was paid for by Barbara Arnwine.
We here at Radio 1 share the sad news that one of our family members, Butch McAdams, has joined the ancestors. The coach, as he was affectionately known, was the host of In and Out of Sports on WOL and a contributor on the Larry Young Morning Show in Baltimore. To his family, we offer our most sincere condolences during this most difficult time.
WOL Washington, D.C. W240DJ Washington. 95.9 WMMJ HD3 Bethesda. WKYS HD3 Washington. WPRS HD3 Waldorf and worldwide at WOLDCnews.com.
The views and opinions of the following show do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of News Talk 1450 WOL, Radio 1 Incorporated, or their management.